In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you a YouTube ads case study where I'm going to be helping my client Manta Sleep get from 5 figures to 6 figures in monthly ad spend on YouTube ads. Hi, my name is Daryl and I run an e-commerce focused Google Ads agency called Big Flare. We've helped multiple clients scale from 5 figures to 6 figures in YouTube ad spend. And I recently agreed to help Manta Sleep do the same by teaching them the strategies that I've learned along the way. If you don't know who Manta Sleep are, then go and check them out over at mantasleep.com. They produce what I honestly believe to be the world's most comfortable 100% blackout guaranteed sleep mask. In today's video, I'm actually going to share with you the live recording of the very first coaching and consulting video I did for them. You're going to see a real-life example of an e-commerce YouTube ads campaign that already spends 5 figures per month. And then you're going to see the exact tactics that I recommend that I think is going to take them up to 6-figure ad spend and beyond. Now, in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to share follow-up videos as I continue to coach them through this journey. And later this year, when we hopefully cross the barrier to doing 6 figures in monthly ad spend on YouTube ads, I'll post a summary video to let you know how we did and how we got there. If you want to follow along with this live YouTube ads case study, then hit the subscribe button and stay tuned to my channel. Right, hello and welcome to this video review of Manta Sleep's YouTube ads account. Alright, and I would like to first off start our little review here by just recapping what's happened in recent months, which will give us a clearer view of what's been going on and also allow us to see where we want to get to with this account, or where I think we can get to in the near future with this account. So we're looking right now at the past few months, September 2020 until end of January 2021. And in terms of spend and conversion value over cost, or ROAS, we're doing about 20 to 30k spend per month. So 20 spend in October, 20 spend in November, 30 spend in December, could be partially due to Christmas there. January looking good at 35k spend. And in terms of ROASs, 0.93, so not making the full return there, less than 1x there, 0.94, 1.19 here in November, 1.26 and 1.51 there. So things are improving, but where I see this could get to, and where I think where we can get to as well with some of the ideas that I'm going to show you in today's video, is I think this account is very ripe for hitting 6-figure ad spends at 2x ROAS. So that's the goal that I've got in my head for this account. I think it's very possible. I think if you do all the things that I'm going to recommend, we will get there in a matter of months. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about what are these things that I think we could be doing to help us get to 6-figure ad spend and 2x ROAS and above in this account that's already got good data in here. It's already got lots of conversions and lots of ads tested and lots of audiences tested. So it's really rich. We've got a lot to work with already. So let's start diving into that. Okay. So let me just look at something a bit more recent so we can see what's been going on a bit more recently. And I've got some notes over here, just jotted down what I wanted to talk to you about today. And what I'm going to cover at the very top level, these are the 4 things I'm going to cover. It's the same 4 things that you always cover when you're looking to improve YouTube ad campaigns. And I've actually prioritized them. This is the priority that I'm recommending that you look at these things in, because this is not priority based on importance. Like all of these things are incredibly important. And if you wanted to, I don't think you could pick out the one most important thing, but ads and landing pages, super incredibly important, especially the ads, especially for YouTube ads. So this ordering is not to say these guys are not important. This ordering is to say, like, where can we have the maximum impact in the minimum amount of time? What's the 80-20? Like, you're going to have the biggest impact for the shortest time investment when you start with your bids and budgets and understand the strategies around there. And then targeting, because you've already got winning targeting in the account that we can capitalize on, that we can spend more on, that we can, we've already spent the money to get the data to know what wins. And now I see an opportunity here to capitalize that and get more of those wins. And then also trying new targeting. It's just a lot quicker to do this and to find more winners, because we've already got winners, we want to expand on those. And then we want to find more winners, and both of these fall under targeting, and all of this is quicker to effect than ads and landing pages. So I'm going to talk about those last, not because they're not important, but just because they take longer to improve. Okay, so now we know the agenda for today, and let's first talk about bids, budgets, and like the strategy around that. And my browser window just wanted to minimize itself for some reason. Apologies. Okay. So, bids and budgets, top campaigns has died a bit. Okay, so yeah, I noticed a thing that happened in your account, which is, and this thing gives us an opportunity for some learning. So if we look at, say, the past 90 days up to yesterday, we see that your cold traffic custom affinity campaign is coming up top, which is good because the goal of this YouTube ads campaign is to win with prospecting traffic, right? So you generally want to see prospecting cold traffic audiences coming up top when you rank by spend, and this is what I would expect to see. This is what I saw when I first dug into the account. But then when I looked at more recent time frames, I actually saw retargeting is now the top spending, and when you're spending more on retargeting than on prospecting, you're not really doing the job so effectively of driving fresh new traffic to your site. And the goal with this account is to prospect, is to get cold traffic. So something's happened here, and I think the situation has kind of already righted itself, because if we look past 7 days, custom affinity comes back on, comes back up top. But custom affinity as a campaign, it did take a dip. So let's look into that, because I think there are some interesting concepts and lessons to be learned in here that you can use to improve some of your other campaigns. So if we look at, you see this dip here. So this is, let's just get rid of your performance for a while so you can just see cost. So this campaign generally spends well. Like if we look back over larger periods of time, this campaign is a top spender, it gets good conversion volume, it performs, right? But then we see this happening here, where there's a serious dip in spend. And this happens a lot with YouTube ads, and you need to know how to correct it. So I'm going to talk about how to correct it. Now, in this case, it is kind of starting to come back after this dip. But knowing how to correct this kind of dip, if it doesn't come back on its own, is an important skill, because it's going to allow you to fix this kind of action happening in your other campaigns. And there are other campaigns right now where this kind of thing is happening. So to fix this kind of thing, you need to understand bids and budgets, how the automated bid strategies work, how they work in conjunction with your daily budgets, and what are the best bid strategies to be using. Now, this campaign is on a target CPA bid strategy, and essentially for YouTube ads, I only use and only really recommend using 2 automated bid strategies. So I don't use manual bidding at all. I make the decision for each campaign, is this a maximize conversions type campaign, or is this a target CPA campaign? And generally speaking, you want to start with maximize conversions. If you don't have much conversion data yet, it's a new campaign, you want to start with low daily budgets and stick on maximize conversions, and then it's going to get as many conversions as you can for that daily budget. And there are pros and cons to target CPA versus maximize conversions, and depending on where you are at with the campaign, you will make the decision as to whether to use maximize conversions or target CPA. Now, in this campaign, we're using target CPA, and that affects our decision on how to fix a drop in spend. When you're on target CPA, and when your target CPA that you set is quite close to the target CPA that you really want, you might start seeing this happening sometimes. And sometimes the algorithm just gets stuck in a bit of a rut. Like maybe for a few days the conversion volume just drops. Maybe it was a temporary drop in conversion rate. Maybe it was reacting to the market. Like I think this was like around about Christmas time. Maybe other advertisers were flooding the market. It can temporarily upset the algorithm, and sometimes target CPA can get itself stuck in a rut where it just runs your bids so low that it stops getting conversions. So like the thinking in the algorithm probably goes something like this. It's like, oh, I'm getting less conversions, I better lower my bids. And as it lowers the bids, it gets even less conversions, and it gets into a vicious cycle, right? It keeps lowering the bids, and then conversions come in even less. When there's less conversions, your CPA might start spiking up, so it lowers the bids even more, and it gets stuck in a rut. So when you're on target CPA and you see this happening, you have to get it stuck out of its rut. And in order to do that, you have two options. One option is switch to maximize conversions. Maximize conversions will spend. Maximize conversions, the whole goal of the bid strategy is to get as many conversions as possible for your daily budget. So when you switch to maximize conversions, your CPC bids are now very, very dependent on your budget. So if you switch to maximize conversions, you need to be really careful about your daily budgets, because it is going to spend all of that. And that's the disadvantage of maximize conversions, is it could spend $200 for 0 conversions. But the advantage of maximize conversions is that it is going to spend your $200. It's going to spend your budget. And in a case like this, where you see spend dying off, and it might be due to the algorithm getting stuck in a rut, you can reteach the algorithm by telling the algorithm, look, just spend, please. Spend, because I know this campaign gets conversions. I know this campaign can work. You've got stuck in a rut, and you've just kind of convinced yourself that you're not getting conversions here. So this is where manual input is needed. You switch over to maximize conversions. You be very careful about your daily budget. Make sure it's at a level you're comfortable with, because maximize conversions will spend that. And switching over to maximize conversions will force it to spend. The spend will come back up. As it spends more, it should hopefully get conversions again. And it should hopefully soon get conversions at a decent CPA again. And then when you've been spending a while on maximize conversions and it's got a comfortable amount of conversion volume, you could then make the decision to switch back to your previous target CPA settings. And hopefully, if you do that, it will now be back at its old levels of spend, back at its old levels of CPA performance, back before all of these shenanigans happened. That's one option for how to deal with this. The other option is to raise your target CPA. So it's basically raising the CPA is achieving the same thing. It's telling the algorithm to raise its bids. When you switch to maximize conversions at that daily budget, the algorithm will respond by raising your CPC bids. And the problem here is that the algorithm has dialed in the CPC bids too low, which is killing all your traffic. So the other way you can get it to raise its CPC bids is to increase the target CPA. So you could go like maybe up to 70, 90, even 100, okay? And yeah, I know that's too high. You don't actually want a CPA of 70, 90, or 100, but this is a temporary measure, exactly the same as switching to maximize conversions. This is a temporary measure that we're employing to get a campaign back to its previous spend levels. And when that works, like let's say you increase the CPA up to 100, okay, boom, it's going to start spending more, and then hopefully it's going to get conversions again, and then it's going to get you your CPA that you want, and then after it's got conversions again, you can start lowering the CPA back down to where it was. Like lower it in steps, like you might go boom up to 100, okay, it spends more, and then it gets conversions, but the CPA is too high, and the next step might be lower down to 70, let that settle, then the next step might be lower down to 40, let that settle, and then the next step might be to get it back down to the CPA it was at before. And if you follow that sequence, and if you allow enough time in between each step, each change, so that the algorithm doesn't get upset, you should be able to get back to where you were before in terms of performance in this campaign. Okay, so those are the two strategies you have. Both strategies can work, and I would just experiment with both of them, see which one like you feel most comfortable with implementing. I probably favor the switch to maximize conversions strategy. But it really depends on like how aggressive you want to be with like spending in a risky campaign, because like spending in this campaign is going to go back into risky mode, because you kind of need to reteach the algorithm like how to perform at the level it was performing at before. Okay, so there are other campaigns in here. I think it was this one, maximize conversions. Okay, there's other campaigns in here that teach us, where I can tell you specific things to do, and it also teaches us principles that you can use on other campaigns. This campaign here is set to maximize conversions. Okay, and when we're using maximize conversions, we're using a separate set of bidding and budgeting and scaling decisions and strategies, because maximize conversions works differently. So this one is on maximize conversions, and it's hitting our spend cap, and it's performing pretty well. It's like performing at a CPA of 25, it's performing at a ROAS of 1.62. Like, assuming these numbers are good, and I think they are, there is room to scale this campaign. So the principle you want to look for here is you want to look for campaigns that have good performance and are hitting their but they're hitting their budget caps, they're hitting their daily budget consistently. And if the performance is good and it's hitting its daily budget consistently, you need to raise the daily budget, because you could be spending more at the same great performance. And how you raise the daily budget, that is dependent on whether you're using maximize conversions or whether you're using target CPA. This one is using maximize conversions, which means you need to raise the budget slowly. So as I mentioned before, maximize conversions, the daily budget directly impacts your CPC bid, because the whole goal of the bid strategy is to get as many conversions as possible for your daily budget, meaning that it's going to try and dial the bids in precisely so that it gets as many clicks as possible, as many conversions as possible for the daily budget that you've set, which means that every time you raise the budget, it can raise the bids. Like, as soon as you change the budget, the algorithm's going to know, okay, I can raise the bids, I can change the CPC bids. But every time it changes the CPC bids, that's risky. So therefore, raising the daily budget in a maximize conversions campaign is risky. It can upset the algorithm. It can work really, really well. It can also upset the algorithm, which is why we do it slowly and carefully. So I would use increments. In this campaign, I would use maybe 50 bucks. I would raise it to 150 bucks. So I'd think of increments for campaigns that are spending low, around 100 or like 200 bucks per day. I'd probably like go in like increments of $50. And then for campaigns that are spending more, like maybe 400, 500, 600 per day already, I might do increments of $100 increment or 150. But I wouldn't go much more than that, because you don't want to make sudden increases in budgets when you're on maximize conversions, because then all the bids are going to change and it could upset the algorithm. So slow and steady is the approach to use when scaling your budgets in maximize conversions campaigns. And that is the main disadvantage of maximize conversions, is that when you use it, like, I really like maximize conversions as a bid strategy, because you can just sort of send the campaign out there. It's going to spend. It's not going to have that issue you get with target CPA, where sometimes it just gets stuck on like spending $2 per day, even though you want that campaign to spend 200 bucks per day. That doesn't happen on maximize conversions. That's the big advantage of maximize conversions. But the big disadvantage is that you have limited scaling speed capability. So I would make a change here, increase 50 bucks per day, and then I'd monitor for the next 2 to 3 days. If it still looks good after 2 to 3 days, then you can increase again. So think about doing a budget scaling every 2 to 3 days, and after you scale it, monitor it like every single day, multiple times per day. Just check that it continues to perform and it continues to do well. And if it does continue to do well, scale again in a few days' time. Keep on doing that until you start to see performance not perform so well. And then when the performance, if the performance starts to decline in response to your continued budget scaling, that's when you know you stop budget scaling. That's the decision for maximize conversions. But what would the decision here be if we were already on target CPA, and if we had a history of data of it performing at the target CPA that I want, but it was constantly hitting the budget cap? What would the scaling decision be there? Maybe I can find an example of a campaign. So this one's target CPA. Okay, this one's target CPA, but I don't think it's hitting the budget cap. But let's have a look. So spare budget is 250. Oh yeah, it's kind of hitting the budget cap here, but I don't think it's hitting it every day. Okay. This is interesting. This is your retargeting campaign. It is hitting the budget cap up here, over here. But you can already see that now it's tailing off. Your retargeting is tailing off, and now it's no longer hitting the budget cap. And I think that's probably because you had your cold traffic campaigns just tail off. Your main cold traffic campaign tailed off. And I think the shape of these tail-offs in retargeting is kind of mirroring the shape of the tail-offs in your cold traffic, your main cold traffic campaign. Like tail off there, comes back there and tails off, and then similar shapes here, tail off there, comes back to a different degree, it comes back much more, and then tails off again. So this is showing you the importance of keeping those cold traffic campaigns spending and going, because your retargeting campaign is going to sort of lift things up. It's going to help you a lot. But if you keep your cold traffic campaigns in low spend mode, it is eventually going to have an impact on your retargeting campaign, and you're going to have less people to be retargeting because you're driving less traffic to the site. But yeah, back to scaling decisions. Let's just pretend, or maybe let's not pretend. Maybe let's. Yeah, okay. Like what you'll often see if you've got a target CPA campaign and it's hitting the daily budget. Like let's say our budget is $250, and you just see here it's hitting the $250 every single day. That means you could be spending more at the same great CPA, so you should be scaling, and you should be scaling the budget, and it's exactly the same thing. Like scale the budget, monitor for 2 to 3 days. If it looks good, scale again, rinse and repeat until such time as your budget scaling causes a drop in performance. The difference with target CPA is you can scale much faster, because in target CPA your bids are not affected directly by your budget, because target CPA, it's deciding your CPC bids to try and get you your CPA. So if the CPA is too high, it reduces the bids. If the CPA is too low, it increases the bids. All its decisions are made based on your CPA, not on your budget, right? So when you're in target CPA mode, this means you can scale the budget quickly. So in maximize conversion mode, I was talking about, maybe do $50, $100 add on to the daily budget each day. With target CPA, you could just like double this. Like you could go up to 500. You could go all the way up to 1,000 in one go. Like I've successfully gone from $1,000 per day budget on a campaign that was on target CPA, and just whacked it up to 2,000, 3,000, like in per day in one go. And you know what happened? It just went boom. It spent more, and it maintains the same great CPA, and it didn't care that I made such a sudden adjustment. And that is the huge advantage to getting your stuff working on target CPA, is that once something is working, if you then get it onto a target CPA, then you can scale really, really fast. So something I like to do is to start out on maximize conversions, slowly scale it up until the campaign's doing around about $500 per day. And if it's doing $500 per day and it is performing, it's getting good conversions, then I might switch it over to target CPA, give it some time to rest to make sure it still performs when I make that switch. When I switch it over to target CPA, by the way, I like to put in a CPA target that's higher than its actual performance. That gives it a bit of room. If you don't give it room, you might get that situation where the spend just completely drops off. Give it a bit of room, and don't worry about setting the CPA target too high, because it will often just perform below where you set the target. So like if you've got a maximize conversions campaign spending $500 per day and it's been doing $25 CPA consistently for weeks or day, like a week or so, then I might switch it to target CPA, and I might set the target CPA higher. I might set it at 35, and what that will do is it will give it room to spend. It won't kill the spend. It will probably still perform at a CPA of around 25. It will still perform at a CPA that's less than that target that I set. And then I'll make that change, and once you've made that change, once you've shifted over to target CPA, now you can scale fast. Now, like if I had stayed on maximize conversions in that campaign, I'd have to continue scaling at like $100 per day, and if I really want to scale fast, that's going to be slow. But when you switched over to target CPA, now you can go from 500 to 1,000, from 1,000 to 2,000, and if it was performing before you made that change, it should perform afterwards. But it doesn't, like that happens 90% of the time. Like 10% of the time something happens. So always with budget scaling decisions, and always with changes to the bid strategy, make the change, and then monitor the change for 2 to 3 days afterwards. Look for so one big win here is to apply those lessons. Look for campaigns that are performing, but are hitting your daily budget spend limits, and then scale those campaigns. Scale the budgets of those campaigns slowly if you're on maximize conversions, and quickly if you're on target CPA. After you scale, always monitor. And I've got a couple of quick pro tips for you on how to manage this whole process. First of all, when you're making decisions like this, you want to think of your budgets and CPA and bid strategies at the campaign level. So we're talking about scaling decisions here, and we're thinking about, okay, where's my budget at, where's my performance at, and we're thinking about that at the campaign level, which means I always recommend that you control your target CPA and your bid strategies at the campaign level. If you don't do that, it makes it really hard to make these kinds of decisions quickly and easily. And I noticed that in some of your campaigns, you're not controlling your target CPA at the campaign level. Like in this campaign, for example, we see target CPA is different at the ad group level. I wouldn't do that. I would just have one target CPA for the whole campaign, because what that allows me to do is to then look at the campaign, and then look at the CPA and the cost of the campaign, and then decide at the campaign level what should happen to the cost and the CPA next. Like if the CPA is consistently performing at the target, but the target's a little bit too high, then I might drop the CPA target a little bit. Or if the target CPA is already good, but the budget is hitting its daily spend limit, then I might scale the budget. All these decisions and all these thoughts I'm having at the campaign level, and it's really hard to think and see clearly like this if you've got separate target CPAs at the ad group level. Because if you see a change in CPA performance up here, then you might not notice. It might not be easy to tell, was that because of something that happened with my daily budget, or like what if you increased the TCPA in one ad group but decreased it in the other, or you made a CPA change in only one ad group? It becomes really hard to relate the changes back to the data that happens at the campaign level. So I would control target CPA at the campaign level, and I would also do this every time you make a budget or bid strategy decision. Come up here to the graph if you make it at the campaign level, come up here to the graph, click there, click add note, and then add a note to the campaign to say what change you made. So like, let's say at this date, this is just an example, let's say I decreased the TCPA from 50 to 30. So you can create notes like that. And then what that allows you to do is later on, when you're analyzing the changes in your campaign, you can see, look, spend started to drop off here. Oh, and I did make a change over here. What was that change? Okay, that was when I decreased the CPA, and then I see this change happen. Okay, so maybe I need to increase the CPA back up if I want it to be spending at this level. And then you could increase the CPA back up. You could add a note back on the graph to say the change that you made. And that's really going to help you make the right decisions at the campaign level for what to do with your target CPA, with your bid strategy, and with your budget. So when you zoom into the campaign like I am here and you add a note, it's going to automatically add it for that particular campaign. You can see all your notes over here. So you can see that I created a note here. I'm just going to delete that note because it's fake. You can also make notes at the account level. So you can make a note up here and then it will apply at the account level. So use the note system and make a note of whenever you make, we've got some notes here. Was that when I was mucking around on, can't really see them. It's not clicking open for me. No? Is that a bug? Okay, can't click on those notes. Maybe that's just a visual bug or a note I deleted previously. But you can add notes at the campaign level as well. So just add note there at the account level, sorry. So use the note system and make a note there of every time you make a budget or bid strategy decision. It will help a lot later down the line as you're making new decisions. So those are my pro tips there. And yeah, that's everything I have for you on bidding and budgeting. or is it? Is there anything else I wanted to say with bidding and budgeting? No, that's about it. I mean, you've got a lot of campaigns on here on target CPA, which is good. For me, target CPA is where you want to be. Like ideally, you want to be on target CPA for everything, but target CPA sometimes causes a drop in spend, especially when you start reducing the target CPA down to the true target that you want. So oftentimes, like, I'll start campaigns on maximize conversions, but my goal will always be to eventually get it to target CPA, because once I got it to target CPA and to get it performing at a good ROAS, because once I'm there, then I can scale the budget really, really quickly. So it's good that you've got all of these campaigns on target CPA. If some of them, what you might see is they're consistently performing at the target CPA, but maybe the target CPA is a bit higher than you want it. There's an example of that. Let's have a look in here. So in this case, your target CPA is 35, and let's say, so another decision you can make is if you see spend is consistently hitting your daily budget and CPA is consistently at your target CPA or a little bit below, but your target CPA is a bit higher than you actually want it. Like you can see here that a CPA target of 35 is delivering a CPA of 28 or 29, but that's only a ROAS of 1.1, so we want the ROAS to be higher. We want the ROAS to be 2, which means probably we need the target CPA to be lower. So you can think about, in these cases where we're hitting the target that was set, but it seems the target's a bit too high because we're not getting the ROAS that we want, then you can start thinking about nudging the CPA down. And the same way with maximize conversions, when we're nudging the budget up, we want to be really careful. It's the same with target CPA and nudging the CPA down. You want to be really careful. So like I would only nudge it down maybe like a few bucks at a time, like $2 to $4 at a time. So my next nudge might be 33. The next nudge after that might be 31 or 30. Nudge it in the direction you want, and then make a note up here and monitor it for the next 2 to 3 days. If things look good, then you can rinse and repeat. If things don't look good, you might have to reverse the change, or you might just be happy with what happens and keep it after that. So that's another kind of decision matrix you can use for what to do with your bidding and budgeting. And with that, I think I have truly said everything I wanted to say to you about bids and budgeting. Let's go on to talk about targeting. Okay, so there's stuff. Okay, let's look at your audiences first of all. Okay, so video campaigns, and let's look at all your audiences. Okay, so let's look at the past 90 days up to yesterday, and we're looking at your audiences, who are you targeting, and let's just get rid of, campaign name does not contain RTG. Probably that, because we just want to look at our prospecting audiences, our cold traffic audiences. Okay, so if we look at what's been happening in your audiences recently, first of all, there's a really quick win with your targeting here, which is taking the stuff that's already performing and doing what I call the top skimming strategy. It's a name we came up with here at Big Flare to illustrate this technique, just as a shorthand. But what do I mean by skimming the top? I mean, take your audiences or your keywords that are already doing well. So let's filter for things that have got more than a couple of conversions and are doing a ROAS above 2x. So already doing the ROAS that we want. And you'll see that you've actually got a lot of stuff here. You've got 15 audiences in here that actually already perform at the ROAS that we want or better. Some of them are really good at 8.8, 10x ROAS. That's nice. Now, for all of these audiences, what you could do, what I would want to do, is top skimming. And what do I mean by that? I mean skim this audience off the top and separate it out into a single campaign, a single audience campaign. So the way you've structured these ad groups is the way I like to structure my initial ad groups as well. And like these campaigns, I would call them tester campaigns because, okay, let's look at this one here. Let's zoom into this ad group. And let's delete my filter quickly. So normally when I'm setting up my initial campaigns in YouTube, I set them up as what I would call a tester campaign. I usually even put the letter T somewhere into the campaign name, so I know this is a tester campaign or a mixed campaign, I sometimes call them. If you're working with other people in your account, definitely agree the terminology that you're going to use so that you can apply filters like accurately. Like if you're going to use the word mixed, then everyone working on your account should use the word mixed. If you're going to use the word tester or T, then use the word tester or T, and then be consistent in your campaign naming so that you always know what is what. But the way you've structured this campaign is the way I like to structure all my initial testing campaigns, which is that you create one campaign with a lot of targeting ideas in there. And the reason why you do this is because it gives you a campaign where you can quickly test lots of different targeting ideas and allow the machine to help you figure out which of these targeting ideas is working best, right? And the machine has done some figuring out for us in this ad group. So this is one ad group, and this ad group has 288 audiences in there. And the machine has really helped us out here because it's figured out a bunch of stuff. The machine has figured out for us that here are some audiences that work well. But once the machine has figured that out for us, two concepts that we want to use. First of all, the concept of top skimming is skimming these audiences off the top and then breaking them into their own single audience campaign, and then dedicating a budget specifically to that audience. So Black Friday shoppers, they're still performing, that audience is still performing, and you see this happening sometimes. Like Black Friday shoppers as an audience can perform like well outside of Black Friday times. Those are like an audience of people who back in Black Friday times they were looking for deals, but even later on that's still the same mindset in that audience, like the deal seeker kind of person. That audience is performing, so what I would do is, the easiest way to do this is I would actually just copy and paste this existing campaign, and then I would just delete, from my duplicate version of the campaign, I would delete all the other audiences so that now I only have my audience that I want to top skim in this campaign. So then we have a new campaign with only one audience in. Relabel your campaign name accordingly to be descriptive of what you're targeting in here, and then dedicate some budget just to that audience. And every time you make a new campaign in YouTube ads, you're making it in risky mode. So when you just because this audience is working in here doesn't mean it's going to immediately work at this same ROAS when you break it out to its single campaign. You will need to teach the algorithm. So you need to start the whole process of teaching the algorithm how to perform all over again. So the way I would normally do this is I might start the new campaign on the maximize conversions bid strategy on a low budget, maybe $100 per day. I'd let it perform at that level, and then I would start making my usual decisions like, okay, $100 per day, has it started performing yet? Is it getting conversions? Is the CPA good? It is, great, so raise the budget. I might start scaling the budget slowly, might start trying to get that campaign up to $500 per day, and then I might switch it over to target CPA, and then when I've got it to target CPA and it's performing, then I might scale it. But my point here is you've got to make all of those decisions, and you've got to sort of nurture that campaign all again as if it's a totally fresh campaign. So do not assume, this is something that we learned the hard way, but I hope that you don't have to, because I'm telling you now, do not assume that just because this audience performs well here, that when you skim it off the top into its single campaign, don't assume it's just going to straight out of the gate perform like this. It won't. There will be a dip. At first it probably won't convert at all, then a few days later it might convert, and then a few days later it might convert at a better CPA. So it takes time, and that is why when you're doing top skimming, you need to pay attention to the other simple caveat that I have. The other simple thing to remember is, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. We've all heard that before, right? That little phrase. How does that apply to YouTube ads? You apply that to this strategy when thinking about breaking this audience out to its single campaign. This audience in this campaign ain't broken, so don't fix it, don't pause it. When we skim this audience off the top, do not also pause it in this campaign. In fact, don't change this campaign too much. It's working, it ain't broken, so don't fix it. YouTube is really fickle. Every time you make changes, you risk upsetting the algorithm, and what was working yesterday might not work tomorrow. So be very cautious, when something ain't broken, do not fix it. So it's totally fine to have this audience being targeted in 2 campaigns. Audiences in YouTube are huge. There are millions and millions of available impressions in every single audience. Like, even if you separate this out and you're spending a few $100 per day on a separate campaign targeting the same audience, you're really just not going to touch the sides of this audience until you're spending megabucks. So I wouldn't worry about like cannibalizing your campaigns. Totally fine to have 2 campaigns targeting the same audience, and like one campaign is your tester campaign that was testing some stuff and now it's got some winners in there. The other campaign is your winner campaign. I would label that campaign winner or single audience or whatever you want to call it, and that campaign is where you've top skimmed and you're going to try and spend more and get a great CPA on this audience once again. So like, use your filters, search through what's already worked out of your tester campaigns and top skim them into single audience campaigns and slowly build them up. You're going to be able to get more performance at the same or better CPA or ROAS, but it doesn't happen overnight. And every time you do this, every time you top skim, you're making a new campaign that ain't going to perform quite so well at first. So think about that and manage your budgets accordingly. Like, if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if we do all 10 audiences and we top skim them, and we do $100 per day budget in each of those campaigns that we just created, that adds up to $1,000 per day. And those are new campaigns, so they're not going to perform. They're probably not going to get any conversions at all the first few days, right? So do you really want to be spending $1,000 per day on getting no conversions? Maybe yes, maybe no. You have to be careful with the amount of top skimming you do at any one time, because you have to be careful about your budgets. You don't want to be spending too much on new campaigns that are going to have initially low performance. So do top skim, but prioritize. If you're budget constrained and you don't want to risk having too big a drop in performance for the next week or so, then just top skim 1 to 3 audiences at a time. If you've got a greater appetite for risk, if you've got a greater budget for risk, then you could do a lot more top skimming at the same time. The other thing to think about also is your own personal capacity for campaign level budget and bidding monitoring. Like, you're going to need to monitor every single one of those campaigns daily, ideally multiple times daily. And if you don't have the time to do that over the next few days, then don't do 10 campaigns right now. Maybe just do 1 campaign. Like, maybe you've only got enough time right now to just do 1 campaign, right? Another thing is the weekends. Like, we're all often not in front of our computers, not managing our campaigns quite as much over the weekends as we are on the weekdays. So with decisions like this, I might decide to make those decisions or those changes on a Monday or a Tuesday, rather than a Thursday or a Friday where I know that on Saturday or Sunday I might be busy out of the office doing personal things. So that's top skimming. There's another thing you can do with your existing audiences and data, which I call bottom feeding, and that is almost the exact opposite of top skimming. It's where you take all your existing audiences ranked by spend, and instead of skimming the good performers off the top, you go to the bottom, to the stuff that didn't spend at all, because this always happens in YouTube. You launch a bunch of audiences, you say, okay, Google, I want to test these like 300 audiences, can you go away and do that for me? And Google invariably, it's something about the way the machine learning works, or the algorithm, like it very quickly focuses on the winners, and it doesn't really give as much time to test other things as like a human would. Like, for example, these audiences down here, they only spent like $5. That's that. And then Google basically just said, oh, cool, I found something that wins. This thing here wins. I'm just going to spend all the money on this, right? And Google never really gave this a fair chance. And like, there's going to be stuff even lower down here that basically got 0 spent. Yes, like 36 cents. Like, maybe this audience works really well, and Google just never gave it a chance, right? Because of the way this ad group was set up. So bottom feeding is like going through your ad groups and looking at the times where you had some audience ideas that you really did want to test. This thing might really actually work, but Google only spent 56 cents on it before moving on. And when you see this happening, that's another time where you kind of need to take control. And what you do is you bottom feed. So you take the audiences off the bottom of your pile, ranked by spend, the things that never spend, and you break those out into their own campaign. Now, these are still in test. Like, we want to test these audiences. We're not saying the winners yet. So I would still break them out into a mixed campaign, into a testing campaign that has multiple audiences in it. But I would just have less audiences than this. When you have 200, 300 audiences in one campaign, Google will maybe spend on 10 to 20 of them, and the rest of them will just get nothing, as you can see here. So ideally, for your tester campaigns, you want to be doing campaigns and ad groups with no more than 10 to 20 audiences or keywords in it. Any more than that, and this will start happening, and you'll get stuff that just never got tested. So in this case, I would take some groups of 10 to 20 audiences off the bottom of the pile, and I would break those into a new tester campaign with 10 to 20 audiences inside, with a dedicated budget, and I would spend in that campaign and see what happens, and make the same. Those campaigns are new campaigns, so you're going to make new campaign decisions, which means, okay, we're starting from scratch in this campaign, so low budget, maybe start with maximized conversions. You can also start straight out of the bat with target CPA, but what I generally find is if you want a CPA of $25 and you start a new campaign with a CPA target of $25, often what happens is it just doesn't spend. Nothing happens. So if you can start out the gate with target CPA, but the way to do it would be to start out the gate with target CPA, but set a CPA that's too high, like way too high, and then over time lower it down to where you want it to be. So if my target CPA was, if I want it to be at 25 CPA, I might start the new campaign, set it to target CPA, and then I might set the CPA target at $100 or $150 initially. Yeah, that's way too high. But all new campaigns are going to start with a really bad performance initially anyway, but your job is to nurture the campaign, and later on it will get better once the algorithm is learned. So it's like two options, and they're both going to achieve the same thing. Both options, the goal is to force the thing to spend initially, but when it spends initially, it is going to spend at a bad CPA, a bad ROAS, but you want to minimize the amount of time at which it's spending at that bad ROAS, while minimize the amount of time it's spending at that ROAS, while also not being too fast in your changes, because if you're too fast in your changes, you might kill the campaign, the spend might drop. So those are the two variables you need to manage. You need to move quickly so that you don't waste money for too long, but you also need to move slowly so that you give the algorithm enough data to work with so that it doesn't trip up and get itself stuck in a rut. Okay, personally, I prefer starting with maximized conversions because I just know the maximized conversions kind of allows you to test the market and see what kind of CPA you can be getting, and then you can make your decisions from there. Whereas when you start out with a target CPA that's too high, you're kind of already limiting the budget, limiting the algorithm as to how high it can bid. You're kind of limiting it with your own assumptions there, yeah, for me, I just I just prefer to start with maximized conversions, because maximized conversions can also really surprise you. You might. It's just going to get as many conversions as it can for the budget, and if you start with maximized conversions, it might just find that it has a lot of conversions that it can get, and it might give you a really great CPA initially, right? Whereas target CPA, if you start with the target CPA that's too high, if it gives you really great, if it gives you a really great CPA initially, then it's just going to raise the bids because the CPA is much lower than its target, and that really great initial CPA that you got, it's immediately going to just start trying to undo that to try and make the CPA higher because you said it could go all the way up to $100 CPA, right? So the pros and cons of starting your campaigns either way. I generally gravitate towards starting my new campaigns with maximized conversions, scaling a bit, and switching to TCPA later. But there's no right or wrong answer, and you can also start with TCPA that's too high. Okay. So that's top skimming and bottom feeding for you. There was some, okay, this is just recapping exactly what I just said. There's like fitness products and Android phones. Like these are audiences that seem to be working really well for you, so top skim them. There's another principle I can demonstrate for you if we look at these audiences. Let's put on my filter of good stuff. Here we are. Okay, so look at, okay, there they are. Get rid of retargeting. Campaign name does not contain RTG. Okay. Okay, so another principle of targeting in YouTube is expect the unexpected. Okay, so the way that targeting works on YouTube is totally different to search and shopping. In search and shopping, you're really just you're targeting bottom of the funnel people. You're targeting people who on the IDA marketing funnel, they're already at the decision and action phase, phase of the marketing funnel. They know what they want. They know they want a sleeping mask in your case, and they're searching on Google for sleeping mask. So you're targeting bottom of the funnel people who want a sleeping mask. So that's not how it works in YouTube. And really, with YouTube, our goal is to think about our customer avatar. Think about like people who buy sleeping masks, and then think about like who are they as a person, and think about who are they as a person, and then think about what other things might they be interested in. And those other things that they might be interested in, that's often where the money's to be made on YouTube ads. So if you go into a YouTube ads campaign and all you're targeting is like buy sleep masks, get sleep mask, in the market for sleep mask, if that's what you've got down as you're targeting in your YouTube ads campaign, then you're kind of thinking about it wrong. Yes, do target those audiences because those do work sometimes in YouTube ads as well, but that's not where the bulk of your successful prospecting traffic is likely to happen. And you can see that principle, like expect the unexpected when it comes to targeting. You can see that principle demonstrated here in the audiences that work for you. Camcorders, people like camcorders, like WTF, like camcorders works really well. This one here, 3.5x ROAS, is Nintendo consoles. I love this one. Nintendo consoles. Huh. People who buy your sleeping mask are also interested in Nintendo consoles. I wouldn't have expected it. And that's why with your YouTube targeting, you need to have a bit of some of your budget dedicated towards targeting the unexpected. So be experimental. Don't prohibit yourself from trying out Nintendo consoles as targeting, because it might actually work. But like probably most of your budget you want to dedicate to something where you have like some logical step from your target audience to the thing that you're targeting. And there probably is a logical step to Nintendo consoles. I can't quite think of it, right? Like fitness products and services. There's like a very clear logical step here, I think, to go from sleeping masks to fitness products. Like people who buy sleeping masks are interested in sleep hygiene and sleep optimization. People who are interested in sleep hygiene and sleep optimization are often interested in just fitness and health in general, right? So that's the kind of like jumps you can go through to figure out some audience ideas that you might not have expected were going to work, but do work really well. Okay, let's talk about your custom affinity campaign. So in your custom affinity campaign, it's one of your top spending cold traffic campaigns. It's got a single custom affinity audience in there called competitor URLs. So this one's doing really well. Custom affinity seems to be working really well, and you're targeting your competitors in here. So if we look inside the audience, what I see is that your audience is composed of a bunch of URLs, all URLs of what I'm assuming are your competitors and similar products. That's great. It's working. I think we can build on this, and the way I normally like to do custom affinity, the way that I find works really well, is each custom affinity audience is a mix of 6 to 10 different things, usually 1 or maybe 2 URLs, and then the rest are keywords. So for example, like tomorrowsleep.com, I might break this out into its own custom affinity audience, and that custom affinity audience would have this URL inside it, and then a bunch of keywords around this brand, like Tomorrow Sleep mattress. I don't actually know what Tomorrow Sleep does. Do they sell mattresses? Tomorrow Sleep mattress, Tomorrow Sleep buy, Tomorrow Sleep, etc., etc. So a mixture of 6 to 10 different things, 1 or 2 URLs, the rest are keywords, and then each one of these competitors can be one separate custom affinity audience accordingly. So you've actually got like maybe 20, at the moment you're just testing this one custom affinity audience, but you've actually got 20 different ideas you can build out of this. And of those 20 ideas, maybe something in there will work really, really well, and maybe some other things won't work quite so well, so you'll pause them out. But yeah, there's lots of ideas that could be had from inside of here. A similar strategy for custom intent. So that is how that's very similar to how I would structure my custom intent audiences as well. So create a collection of 6 to 10 different targeting ideas, all tightly themed, all tightly grouped around the same thing, and then each custom intent audience has like those 6 to 10 things inside of it. That's how I build custom intent audiences, and we're going to talk in a minute about keyword research for YouTube ads. When you perform keyword research, I would do 2 things with the keywords that you find. I would add them as actual keywords to target for contextual targeting in YouTube, and I would also add them as custom intent. So for every keyword I find, I would make a grouping of around 6 to 10 different very, very similar keywords. I would make it into a custom intent, and I would target that as well. And talking about keyword targeting, so let's look at your keywords, your campaigns, keywords, and you've got 2 types of keyword targeting campaign going on in here. You've got one type of keyword targeting here, which it just says contextual. So that is just keyword targeting with nothing else layered on. And then you've also got some campaigns where it's in-market plus contextual. And when you do in-market plus keyword like that, what you're doing is it's an and filter. So these campaigns are going to be more targeted, but they're also going to be targeting less people, because you're going to be targeting people who are in the market for X, whatever you applied to that campaign, and also who are on a page about Y being the keyword, right? So when you do in-market plus keyword, it's an and filter. You're narrowing the audience, but making it more specific. And what I want to talk about is just keyword targeting, pure keyword targeting without layering in-market in on top. I think we could be doing more of it here. I see keyword targeting working really, really well in YouTube ads. A lot of our accounts, like we've got an account right now that's spending in the region of 200K per month at like well above 2x ROAS, 2.5x ROAS. We've gone there now for like well into the 6-figure ad spend per month, and we've done that largely like off the back of a lot of keyword testing with just like pure keyword testing, not in-market plus keyword. We've seen time and again that keywords just work really well for YouTube. And I think we could be doing more keyword targeting in your account. So when I look at the keywords in your account, I think we've got some good ideas here. This is the kind of keyword that I like to see, like lucid dreaming, guided meditation. Great. So we've done some research there. We've figured out some related keywords that our audience would be interested in without just targeting, buy sleep mask. But what I'd like to see here is just more ideas. I think we can categorize the ideas in here into maybe 3 or 4 different buckets. So we've got lucid dreaming, we've got binaural beats or ASMR, which I believe is the music that people play to help them get to sleep. So lucid dreaming and sleep music, those are 2 ideas. These are all basically the same idea but different keywords within the same idea. And then I think it's a couple of ideas, a lot of keywords, but only a couple of maybe 3 or 4 distinct ideas. And the ideas are lucid dreaming, sleeping music or ASMR. And then there's lower down there's some direct targeting ideas like sleep mask, buy sleep mask review. Those are all great, but I think we should be generating more ideas and testing through those different ideas quicker to see where the winners are. And the way I recommend generating new ideas is my note isn't quite loading. I had some stuff underneath there, but anyway, you want to find the related stuff, the things that your audience is also interested in, and one really handy way of doing that is just to go to Google and type in product name and then blog. So we're saying sleep masks, so sleep masks is the product name, and then just write blog afterwards because you want to find blogs and information in the space. So when I was doing this before, I came across this site here, and when you start browsing around the blogs and news sites and everything within your niche, you're just going to start coming up with loads of keyword ideas. Here's a bunch of keyword ideas. We could target all of those. Best mattress, that's a keyword idea. Mattress reviews, that's a keyword idea. These are all really related, right? Sleep accessories, I didn't see that keyword in our account. And then underneath here, tons of keyword ideas, tuft and needle, idle sleep, pure. Wow, hundreds of keywords ideas just on this site. Next site down. More keyword ideas just when we browse around. Blue blocks, total darkness, optimal light environment, traveling, sleep when traveling. So if you do this and you just scroll down the blogs in your niche and just look around and don't think I have to target sleep masks, think what other things are my people interested in? I want to target those things in YouTube, and then add them as keyword targeting, add them as custom intent as well. Another idea generation thing you can do is go to YouTube and then type product name reviews, so sleep mask reviews, and then there's some places in here that you can look for keywords. The first review that pops up is, hey, it's actually the Manta Sleep mask. Hey. So where can you find keywords on here?
Yes. Lots of places. This was called the Manta.
So first of all, within the video itself, so watch the video, listen to him. What's he talking about? Where are the keyword ideas in there? And then in the title of the video, go away please. In the title of the video, there's going to be keyword ideas in there. In the description, there'll be keyword ideas in there, and in the comments, there'll be keyword in there, like eye caps. Okay, cool. Face mask maybe. Okay, but the best place I like to look for keywords on YouTube is call up videos, review videos, the videos that your audience is watching, and then go down here to the suggested videos and look at the titles and see what's popping up in there. The 3 best sleep masks, Better. Okay, there's an interesting one. Better sleep tuner review. So there's a bunch of keyword ideas just there, like better as a keyword, or better sleep, or better sleep tuner, or better review, or sleep tuner review. So just that one headline already gives you loads of keyword ideas. Sleep tracker Okay, so now we're going down the rabbit hole, because when I see that keyword, not only do I think sleep tracker could be a keyword we target, but now I just thought of all the sleep tracker products. So Apple Watch, Fitbit, Whoop fitness band is one of the sleep tracking bit. Aura Ring. Okay, so now we can just go. So with this kind of keyword research, when you find a rabbit hole, like dive down that rabbit hole, baby. So sleep, what are the best sleep trackers in, let's do 2020 because it hasn't been. So Xiaomi Sleep Space, Wellu, O2 Ring. I like to look at, for this kind of research, I actually like to prefer to go to big sites like Tech Radar and see what their summary article is. And then the name of every product in here could potentially be a keyword for us. So within sleep, Bedit 3.5. People who buy this stuff are clearly interested in sleeping better. People who sleep better, who are interested in sleeping better, are probably going to be interested in our mask. So this is just so rich of keyword ideas. So yeah, the two principles here basically are look for blogs and reviews in your space, and look for the related ideas and find the rabbit holes and deep dive those rabbit holes, and then just write a big ass list. Prioritize the list, because you're going to generate so many keywords that you're not going to be able to test all of them, but prioritize the list, put the best ideas at the top, to have a variety of different ideas. So like if you're going to prioritize testing 100 keywords tomorrow, don't make them all 100 keywords about better sleep tuner, but mix in different ideas, because what we saw right now is you've got hundreds of keywords but only 3 or 4 different distinct ideas. So prioritize your keyword ideas and then slice them up and target, test as many ideas as you can afford with your budget. Remember, new campaigns are going to go out in risky mode. And also make sure that you're testing different ideas. So lots of keywords, lots of ideas. Test all of that in tester campaigns, and then top skim and bottom feed accordingly. Did I close my notes? I did close my notes. Apologies. Let me just find my notes quickly. Oh, my notes in Notion is locked out. Thank you. Okay, bear with me. Find my notes. Here we go. Okay. So that has actually been a sizable chunk of information, and I think there's a lot to think about and work on there. So you know what, I've got, I'm about halfway through. I've got a bunch of stuff I can tell you about creative and landing page. But let's make this an 80-20 video. I think you've got tons of stuff to work on there, and we've had some important learnings, I think, around bids, budgets, and targeting. Just with that, I think you can already make a significant impact on the performance of this account. And for those watching on YouTube, you can make, if you're already in the 5 figures spend on YouTube and you want to get to the 6 figure spend and beyond, you're already going to be able to make a serious amount of the distance to that goal just with this bids, budgets, and targeting. That's all for now. In the next video, I will record a subsequent video. I'll give you some time to work on all of this stuff, and then we'll talk about creative and landing pages coming up in the next video. Hope that's been enjoyable for you, and yeah, let me know what you think. So there you have it, a whole hour-long breakdown of a real-life e-commerce YouTube ads campaign. Now, we covered a lot in this video, things like scaling, bids and budgets, targeting, and top skimming and bottom feeding. Which tactic did you like best, and which one are you going to try in your campaign? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to follow along with this YouTube ads case study, then hit the subscribe button below right now. Also, if you'd like to find out more about me or my PPC agency, head over to bigflare.com. Something. E-commerce YouTube ads campaign. Okay, so there you have it. I'll be shooting more video. I'll be doing something. If you'd like to stay something. It's a bit of a weird. And we are done. Now too quick. Okay.